Hello! As you could probably tell from my thumbnail and my title, I'm doing the Midyear Book Freakout tag. This is my third year doing it. I'm in my third year on YouTube. That's really weird. It does not seem like it's been that long. This is such a fun tag to do. I look forward to it every year, and now it's here again, and I'm gonna tell you about some shit that I read this year. So the original tag was done by Earl Grey Books. I will leave the description, or I will leave the link to that in the description of my video if you'd like to take a look at that. First, the best book you've read so far. I think this is still it. It's still Good Neighbors by Sarah Langan, which is about kind of a misfit family who lives in this neighborhood full of kind of goody two-shoeses, but they turn out to not really be goody two-shoeses, and their true nature is kind of revealed when this crazy sinkhole opens up in the park across the little street that they live on, the park that all the children play in, and one of the children falls in, and the neighbors all turn on the family misfits. They're called the Wilds, and for no reason. It's not their fault that this happened, but they're convinced that it is. The rumors are started by like one woman in particular, and it just like spirals out of control. It gets so bad and dark, and it's just such a good book. And I really loved the Wild so much, and simultaneously hated everyone else so much. It's a great read. It's my favorite. It's still my favorite. I read this in January, I'm pretty sure. I think that's when it came out, and it's still my favorite book. I've read like 60 books this year, and this is still one of my favorites. So if you're gonna pick up one book this year, I would recommend picking up Good Neighbors by Sarah Langan. Number 2, the best sequel you've read so far in 2016, and that is The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in the Final Empire, or I guess the Mistborn series. The first book is The Final Empire. This might be one of my favorite sequels of all time, if not my favorite sequel of all time. It's just, holy shit. This is a fantasy book. It's got a really rich world where there are people who swallow metals and use it. It's called allomancy, and they use these metals to do different things. Different metals do different things. Most people can only use one, but there are a rare few called Mistborns who are able to use all the metals, and our main character Vin finds out early in the book that she is a Mistborn, and she's recruited by kind of like a criminal gang with good intentions on doing a heist, and that's what the first book's about. It's a really great world. This is one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life. It was so good. Number 3 is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. I'm still awaiting my copy. It came out in the beginning of June, and I'm really looking forward to it. This is The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Delilah Harris, and this is about a young woman who lives in a who works in a publishing house. She's the only black employee, so she's really excited when another black girl gets hired. But then bad things start happening at the office, and she thinks it might be this other girl, Hazel, but she doesn't know. It seems like a really great, really angsty thriller. I'm very excited for this. This is one that I pre-ordered at the very beginning of the year. I just wanted to get here so I can read it this month. Number 4 is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. This was really hard to pick between these two, but I'm looking forward to both The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig and Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. These are both authors that I've really loved in the past. Really excited for these new books. Can't decide which one I'm more excited for. Number 5 is the biggest disappointment you read this year. Ugh, I hate to say it, but that is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. I loved his Aragon series so much when it came out, when I was a teenager, a young teenager, I think I read the last one after I'd had my daughter even, so like there's a lot of years that I read and reread these books, and he didn't write anything after that for years and years and years. And then finally, last year, he published this giant tome. It's like 800 pages. The cover's fucking gorgeous. The spine is gorgeous. I was so excited to pick this up. It's a giant space opera. It's got alien races and this weird like exoskeleton suit that the main character is stuck in that's like sentient, and it just sounded like it was going to be so good, and then it was so boring. It was so boring. I was so disappointed. The main character could have been a robot. Like, she just was very unemotional and not very fun to be around, and Plight of the Universe I just didn't care about. I don't know, it was just such a disappointment. Number 6 was the biggest surprise, and for that I picked The Descent by Jeff Long. I just like didn't know anything about this going into it. I picked it up because it was called The Descent, and because I like briefly looked at the back and it was like caves and stuff like that, so I thought maybe it might have something to do with the movie, because I love the movie The Descent. Great movie. So I got this. It was like a library book sale, I'm pretty sure, and I finally picked it up, and it is just so fucking crazy. One of the craziest books. I just can't even explain it to you. It's like there are these people living underground, and they start to come up, and they call them Hadals, and I don't know. There's just some of the stories, like different little excerpts of people's experiences with them, like what happens when they meet them or find them, and then they send like an expedition into these tunnels under the earth, and it's just so crazy. One of the weirdest books I've ever read. I really liked it. Yeah, it's just so weird. So weird. I need to read the sequel. Number 7 is favorite new author, debut, or new to you. I've got a couple here that I just hadn't read really before, but I'd like to read again, such as Christopher Buehlman, Sarah Langan, Ashley Audrain, and also Megan Giddings, who wrote Lakewood, which I listened to as an audiobook very early this year, and I also really liked. These are all books that I read and I liked. Haven't read anything else by the authors, and would like to try them out. I don't know if I'd necessarily say that they're favorites because I have not read anything else by them, but I would like to. Number 8 is your newest fictional crush, and I gotta say, I'm gonna be coming back to this book a couple times. Ellen Venture from the Mistborn series. He's just so sweet and kind of this nerdy guy who's really interested in politics. He's kind of interested in like the idea of politics. Things happen in the series where he's kind of like thrust into a weird position that he didn't think he'd ever be actually in, and he's just the sweetest. Number 9 is your newest favorite character. I'm not really sure if that's much different than fictional crush, but I really loved Kinch Nashanak in The Blacktongue Thief. He is the main character. He is the Blacktongue Thief. And this is such a weird book. It's fantasy. It's got some really dark themes, but overall it's kind of a book that made me just like laugh a bunch, and it doesn't take itself too seriously, and neither does Kinch. He's like a thief who's like pretty good at what he does, but he is in a lot of debt to the school, the Thieves Guild, and he's got to find a way to make it up. So he goes on this adventure with a veteran of the Goblin Wars who is a lady. She's like a lady knight, and she's a little more like reserved and soft-spoken, or not exactly soft-spoken. She just is less talkative than Kinch. He's just kind of like almost like a goofy dude, and she's just very serious. So they make kind of an unlikely team that works really well together, and like all this shit happens, and it's just such a great fantasy book. I can't wait to see where the series goes on from there. It's beautiful. It's got a great cover, it's got a great spine. It just looks really nice on a bookshelf, you know? Number 10 is A Book That Made You Cry. This doesn't happen very often, but I was absolutely gutted by the ending of the Mistborn series. The last book is called The Hero of Ages, and the end was so good. It wraps everything up, and like, I was upset that it was done. I was really upset that it was done, and it was done really perfectly. It just made me sad. Number 11 is A Book That Made You Happy, and wouldn't you know it, The Blacktongue Thief. Like I said, it just overall has like this really lighthearted tone to it, despite like, and I think maybe that's why the dark parts work so well, because you're like, ha, oh my god, you know? So it's great. Christopher Buehlman, I don't know if he only writes horror, but I've seen his horror books around a lot and nothing else. So I could be mistaken. He might write, you know, more than just horror, but I'm more familiar with his horror stuff than anything else he's done. So Blacktongue Thief, if you like fantasy, this was such a great book. I did a full review on it. I'm gonna leave that in the description if you'd like to hear more about this. Number 12 is The Most Beautiful Book You Bought or Received so far this year. That is probably without a doubt. Things have gotten worse since we last spoke by Eric LaRocca. I have not read this yet. It just came in the mail like last week, and I bought it 100% for this motherfucking cover. It's all over the internet right now, the horror internet, and holy cow, I can't wait to pick this up next month. Who did the art for this? Cover art by Kim Jacobson. Fucking gorgeous. Holy shit. I'd hang this up in my house. Number 13, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I've got a couple different things. Obviously I've got my 5-star predictions. I think I've got left a book by Lisa Tuttle. I've got, what's it called? The Shoemaker by Flora Retta Schreiber. I've got The Loop by Jeremy Robert Johnson. Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, I'm really looking forward to, as well as a couple, like, I don't know if the proper term for this is a series, because it doesn't matter in which order you read them in, but I've got the Ride or Die, oh my god, Ride or Die, what am I saying? Rewind? I'm losing my mind. Rewind or Die by Unnerving Press. This first one's The Midnight Exhibit, which is a collection, like a novella of short stories, like a novella anthology. And like, there's no reason for me to start with the first one. Like, there's absolutely nothing telling me I have to do it that way, but I feel like I need to. So let's start with the first one. And that's the same with Death's Head Press's Splatter Western collection. Not a series that you need to read in order, but I have to. The first one is The Magpie Coffin by Wile Young. Another fantastic cover. And there's a couple like true haunting stories that I want to get to, like The People in the Attic by Doretta Johnson and Jim Henderson. So I'm hoping to get to some of those. I mean, there's just always stuff buzzing around in my head, things that I'm doing for trope videos, things that I want to, like new releases I need to get to, things that I want to read to make content. It's just always buzzing around in there. Sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna make it through. That is my mid-year book freakout tag for 2021, my third year, part 3, the third. Let me know if you've done this video, or if you did like a blog on it. I'd love to read or watch. These are some of my favorite videos to watch as well. I'm not super good. I'm not a very good YouTube viewer. I'm so bad at that. I just don't have enough time in the world. But I would love to watch your video if you've filmed one for the mid-year book freakout tag. That's all I have for you today though. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you later. Goodbye.